All right, good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for joining me tonight. I'm actually really excited about this one because I get to watch food being made. Unfortunately, I don't get to eat the food, but that's okay. Watching it be made is just as fun. Tonight, I am joined by Mandy Davis. She's the co-founder of Carb Manager and a graduate of the Seattle Culinary Academy. She also received an English degree from the University of Harvard, was a restaurant reviewer, baker, cooked on a boat in Alaska, worked as a line cook, and taught high school English. So, Mandy, thank you so much for joining us from your kitchen, it looks like there.
Yeah, I'm so happy to be here.
So, tell me a little bit about what the Carb Manager, the Keto Carb Manager cookbook is all about.
So the Keto Carb Manager cookbook is all about just having delicious food that works really well with the Carb Manager app and a lot of different types of food. And Carb Manager's been around for 10 years, and about a year and a half ago, we were approached about writing a cookbook, and we're just super excited to be able to work with our publishers and come out with this cookbook. And every recipe, today we're going to be doing the mini chai spice cheesecakes.
Ooh.
All of them have like a little QR code that people can scan, and then it can pop up in the app and they can log it that way. So it's all integrated with the Carb Manager app. And there's just like a ton of super fresh, awesome recipes. And we're so excited to share it with you all.
Very cool. That's awesome. And as someone who is always looking for new things to cook and has a complete fascination with anything baking, because to me that is sorcery, that's really exciting to get to see. Before we launch into it, I am curious, can you tell us a little bit more about Carb Manager? You said that it's been around for 10 years now. I don't know if you want to share a little bit of that journey with us, or what that process was like in trying to create that, or what the ideas behind it are, but that's super interesting.
Sure. So Carb Manager was started 10 years ago by my husband and I. We were living in Hawaii at the time, and my husband's a developer. We were thinking about like all different types of apps that we were interested in, and both of us just love food. And Carb Manager was one of the ones that really took off. And so through Carb Manager, it grew into like a whole community, and we had listened to a lot of our users at the time. Like, it started out small, and so we like listened to what everyone needed and took a lot of their feedback, and then it's just grown over the last 10 years. And now we have recipe writers that work with us. We have a huge community of people online, functions where people can like chat and friend each other and track their foods. And so it's really like, it's been such an educational journey for myself, and just blown away by our community, and how supportive and amazing they've been over the last 10 years, and how much we've learned from them. And so I really am so excited to like make something to kind of give back to that community.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think there's something really wonderful about people working together like that when it comes to trying to come towards a common goal. So that's really cool. All right, so tell me a little bit about what I'm definitely not eating tonight, but watching you get to make.
Yes. If anyone out there wants to cook along with us, please do. Wonderful. And if you are cooking along with us right now, I'd recommend that you go ahead and preheat your oven to 350 degrees. We're going to be making the mini chai spice cheesecakes. Here's a little picture of what it's going to look like at the end. And I chose this recipe because it's something that you can make and then make it ahead of time and eat it the next day, eat it over the next few days. It stores really well in the fridge, and it's an example of a recipe that something that we've noticed that a lot of people have struggle with when they first start the keto diet is having enough fat in their diet. And so this is something that's family friendly. People who are keto or not keto really enjoy eating it, but it's a really awesome way and an easy way to have fats to like start your day, or for some sort of sweet or treat or snack or dessert. And then on top of it, the techniques that we're using in this recipe are really adaptable to, you can use it for quiches, you can use it for other flavors of cheesecakes, you can use it just as a crust for all different types of things that you cook. And so I thought it was a good recipe to kind of showcase that, and then also talk a bit about how you can make adjustments depending on your dietary needs.
Awesome. So for those of us who may not know what defines a keto diet or a keto lifestyle, what does define that?
So it's about limiting carbs. How many carbs you're able to eat depends on like your body and what your particular profile looks like. And this is part of the reason that we created this app. Is it sometimes can be a little confusing when you first start something like this, and you're like, my friend says they can eat 20 grams of carbs a day and they're doing fine. But then for me, I'm noticing that like I need a little less than that depending on activity level, or like for some people they might find that having like a low carb, high fat diet, so where they can have a little extra carbs, can be something that's like more helpful for them. So at its most pure, like eating keto is getting your body into the state of ketosis. So it's using fat as fuel instead of like the carbohydrates as fuel.
Okay, very cool. So these cupcakes, they are a good source of fat, which obviously is something that we need to attain ketosis. Am I understanding that correctly?
So you do need the fat for ketosis, but it's when you reduce your carb levels, you need to find something else your body needs to use to burn for energy. And so in this case, you're switching over to using fat for like what you're burning for fuel. And so one thing, like when people first start on keto, it can be difficult to like move your body over to that and make sure you're eating enough calories. Make sure like if you're suffering from keto flu, something, make sure that you have enough calories that you can eat, which should be coming in the form of fat. And so this is a great thing for that. Like there's also at the beginning of this particular section in the cookbook, there's recipes for like, they're called fat bombs. And so if you find that you're like not able to add enough fat into your diet, it's one direction that you can go to make it a little easier.
Awesome. Fat bombs. I feel that on a very personal level. So I'll be quiet for a minute and let you keep going. And like I said, I'm just excited to see the tastiness happen.
Great. Okay. Well, we're going to go ahead and get started. And so once again, I'm making the mini chai spice cheesecakes. It's on page 228 if you have a copy of the cookbook and you want to follow along. And the first thing I've done, I've already preheated the oven, and I went ahead and melted the butter. And the first thing I'm going to do is make the crust. So to make the crust, I'm using some flaxseed meal, and I'll also be using some almond meal, and I will be using some, so I have this here, and I'll be using some swerve, so it's like a powdered erythritol. And this is, if you're just starting on a keto diet and you need that kind of sweetness still to help you transition, I found that like swerve works pretty well for baking. You can use it as a sugar substitute. And as people go further along in their keto journey, you may find that you like don't need as many sweets. And so this might be something that's transitional for some people, or it's something, if they want a treat, they can use some sort of artificial, like this kind of sweetener. And I'll also be using a little salt for this, and then I'm going to be using some melted butter. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm putting let's put the almond meal in there. And I'm going to go ahead and put the flaxseed meal in there. And if you haven't used flaxseed meal before, it's just fantastic. It gives, with this particular crust, it gives it kind of like a graham crackery feeling to it, so that it feels like that cheesecake crust. And if you're someone who's ever, like you're trying not to use eggs or something like that, you may have encountered flaxseed meal before or flax seeds before, because you can also use them to substitute for eggs to help bind ingredients together. But in this case, it's more just for that nutty flavor. It's going to be really awesome in this crust. So now I'm going to go ahead and put in, this is the swerve. And if you're someone, like if swerve is something that's not for you, you can feel free to substitute whatever sweetener, like something else that you might want. And then I'm going to go ahead and add about 1/8 teaspoon of salt in here. And this crust is very similar. We have a quiche earlier on in the cookbook, and we use a crust that's really similar to this, but without the sweetener in it. And it's just a great, even if you're not eating keto, it's a great crust because it comes together so easily and gives such a nice texture under anything that you're cooking. Now I'm going to go ahead and add my melted butter. And I just want this to look, I'm going to go ahead and stir it up, and I should see everything's like coming together. It's going to be this kind of like crumbly texture to start with, and it should just all come together in a uniform way. And then when I put it into the cheesecake bottoms, after I line my pans with the muffin tins, or with the muffin things, I'm going to go ahead and press down on it to give like more of a firm texture for these cheesecakes. So what I'm doing right now is I'm just smashing in like any of the little chunks so that it's all mixed up together. That looks great. So this is the kind of texture that you want. So it's like this crumbly texture. It reminds me, my grandfather loved making cheesecake, and he'd take graham crackers, put them in a Ziploc bag, and then like roll with a rolling pin, put in some sugar, put in some butter. So this is like, a more healthy version of that crust that he would make. I'm gonna go ahead and let's line these tins. And I'm going to be cooking today I'm using one small one that's just 6 because our oven went on a little bit of the fritz. Oh, no. And hopefully it should be coming back soon. It might be working, but I just in case, I wanted to make sure that you will see what it looks like when it's complete. And so I'm going to do it in the toaster oven, which I've done before, and it's super adaptable, awesome recipe where even if you don't have an oven, you can just do it in your toaster oven. I had a friend making this, and she didn't have any like muffin tins or muffin liners, and so she just used like little bowls and just baked it in that. Oh. And it turned out great. So adaptable. If you have silicone muffin liners, you can use those as well. So each cup here is going to get about 1 heaping tablespoon. So I'm going to go ahead and put it in here first, and then I'm going to push down on them with the back of the spoon to give like a really nice texture once it's baked. One thing I should mention is this recipe. I said before that it's really adaptable, and you can use the spices that we have suggested, but you can also substitute, like if you don't have all these spices, you can substitute just cinnamon or just cinnamon and cloves, or I suggested in the beginning if you use cardamom and like serve it with some blueberries. It's pretty tasty that way, but it's very adaptable. And if you're using the Card Manager app and you're tracking, you can always save a recipe to My Foods and then go in and change the ingredients so that you can make it exactly how you've cooked it. Just the last bit in here. Okay, now I'm pushing down, back. And it's going to give a nice texture once it's baked. I'm going to go ahead and move on to the filling. So I have 2 2 bags of cream cheese here. And one thing that's, you don't have to do this, but everything will come together a lot more smoothly if you let your cream cheese soften before you go ahead and mix it in the mixer. And I used to work at Whole Foods for a few years in the bakery, and we used a lot of cream cheese to make various things. And there's nothing like not having your cream cheese at the right temperature and then trying to combine it with other things and having like big chunks of cream cheese. So if you haven't softened it, you might want to just like whip it up a little bit longer, or you can always like nuke it in the microwave for a little bit just to get it so that it's more like at room temperature, and then it whips up better. So I'm going to go ahead and get my mixing bowl. I'll just step away and grab it real quick. Here it is. And let's put these to the side so I have room. Go ahead and put my cream cheese in here. Here we go. Then I've pre-measured the swerve out. This little bowl my daughter made. It has some chicken on it. And this is one thing it's so wonderful. We have 19 chickens and 2 ducks. So we'll be using some chicken eggs from our chickens when we get into that section. Thank you, chickens. And I'm going to go ahead and then, so this is in here, and I'm going to go ahead and whip it I'm going to move the screen just slightly so you can see this. So there is a little stand mixer. And I want to just whip it till it looks like fluffy and things are combined. I don't see any like chunks of the powdered sugar or erythritol in this case, so that it looks like really combined. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'll start adding the eggs, and I'll do those one at a time. So I'm starting slow just so the swerve doesn't fly all over the place. So right now I can still see like the chunks of the swerve on the bottom, and so I'm going to go ahead and scrape it down so that it picks up all the chunks and like mixes it in. Go ahead and do that. And you want it to look, it has this kind of like almost sticky look. Okay, that looks great. So I'm going to bring this over. Normally I would just start adding the eggs in. I'm going to bring this over so I can show you what this looks like. Mm-hmm. So it has this, all of the chunks of the swerve at the bottom are gone, and it has this kind of little spikes and a sort of like stickier texture. And that's just going to help it so that when I start adding the eggs, it can still work, but it won't have quite the right texture if the eggs aren't uniformly mixed in. Because sometimes if you've ever added eggs to butter or eggs to cream cheese, and you get these like chunks all over, that can just, it gives you like not quite as smooth of a texture.
Okay.
And so the way to make that not happen is to go ahead and soften your cream cheese, and then make sure that we have a nice texture at this point, and then add the egg, like add one egg, whip it for a little bit, add the next egg, whip it for a little bit, scrape down your bowl so it has like more of a uniform look. And because these are our own chicken eggs and we have a rooster, I always like to get in the habit of checking each of the eggs before I just like open it up and put it in. So, oh yeah, that looks good. I'll show you that. Let's see if you can see, pretty yellow. It's looking nice. So I'm going to go ahead and mix this in. So turning it to kind of medium speed. There we go. So when I first put in the egg, just like walk you through each of these steps. So when I first put in the egg, it looks really gloppy. Like we see the egg, like the eggs mixed in there is yellow, and it just doesn't combine with the cream cheese. But then I turn the speed up a little bit, and it starts to mix in more and more and more until it's pretty uniform at this point. And then at this point, I'll go ahead. I'm going to scrape down the sides here. And I'm going to add the next egg. And it's the temperature of your room, the temperature, like all of these different temperatures are going to affect how long it takes. So sometimes you'll need to mix it a little longer to get the right like texture for it. Sometimes it'll just come together like that, and it all depends on the temperature difference between like your eggs and the cream cheese, and then also the temperature of your room and like how that's affecting everything mixing together. Okay. Go. This next egg looks good. Go ahead and put it in. We have it so now it's like a lighter yellow, still pretty fluffy. I'm going to go ahead and scrape it down again, and then we'll add the final egg, and then we'll move forward with the vanilla and the spices. Egg looks good again. Okay. So everything's pretty uniformly mixed. I'm going to go ahead and scrape it down again. And then I'll go ahead and add my vanilla. And this is something like vanilla, spices, all of these things, so important on a keto diet. So just making sure that you have like all these different flavors and have a like wide range of things available to you is great. Because sometimes it can get monotonous or boring. And so one of the things that we're trying to do is just let people know the range of options that are out there. And you can really just play around with all these different spices and flavors. But today I'm going to use some vanilla. So I'll go ahead and put in 1 teaspoon. And let's see. I just realized how this will do. There we go. Okay. So everything will mix up, and now it's time to add some spices. And this is an area, before we started, Drew was asking me about precision in baking.
Yeah.
She was saying that he loves cooking because you can just like throw things together and like see what happens. And baking can be intimidating because, you know, things have more ratios, they need to be more precise. But really, like with something like spices, this is an area where you can just play. You can do all different things with this. But today we're doing it, this kind of like chai tea spices. So I have this. If you don't have a mortar and pestle, you can always just use like a little, you can buy things pre-ground, or you can use like a little coffee grind or something. But I find it so easy just to have a mortar and pestle like this, because then, like with the cardamom, I can just take a couple things of cardamom, just gonna throw them in, pound it, and there we go. Look, here's some little cardamom seeds, and it gives you some like just a really fresh flavor to grind. You know, I'm not going to do this with all my spices, but it's really nice to have this fresh cardamom flavor in these. Let's get the rest of this in here. And the reason I hit them so that I could peel the green exterior a little easier. And they're all in there. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead. Sorry about the noise. Let's pound this out. Okay. There we have it. So yeah, these are great. This is also, if you have kids, these are great for, kids can make all kinds of like exciting glittery things in one of these. You just have to wash it well. So go ahead and get our spices here. So let's put in, we'll do an order. So I'm using today, a friend gave me some, I'm using, instead of the ground fennel, I'm going to use a little fennel pollen, just to make things exciting here. And let's put in half a teaspoon of cinnamon. And let's do our ginger. So this one, I love ginger. It's wonderful. Love fresh ginger, powdered ginger, like that. Kind of ginger flavors. And we'll put in a little allspice. And some cloves. Oh, let's put in our cardamom first. So let's see how much. This is a half teaspoon. And this, yeah, it looks like that's just about right for 1/4 teaspoon. So I'm going to go ahead and put all of this in here. Then let's put our cloves in. And cloves are something, you never want to use like too much cloves because it can be really overpowering. But it gives a nice like spice flavor. And if you've never done it before, you can always take a tiny bit of clove and put it on your lip or your tongue. It'll make it feel kind of numb, which is fun. And it gives this sort of like minty flavor. And so I have my spices here all mixed up. But I'm just going to go ahead and put them in my stand mixer. Do it a couple times, and they should all mix in. Just like here, I see I have a little bit of chunks of ginger in there, so I'm just crushing those so that there's not like one cheesecake bite that's like super gingery. We'll go ahead. I'm going to scrape that down one more time. And right now, if you aren't cooking along with me, I just want to describe, like, I can smell all of the different spices in here. So it's this really warm, delicious, like almost like pumpkin pie type spice that I'm smelling. And we'll go ahead and I'm going to clear up this space here, and then go ahead and put the cheesecakes together and then put them in the oven. This is one thing with these cheesecakes. The last time I made them, I just couldn't wait. I ate one right as they came out of the oven, and the flavor's great, but the texture definitely improves if you let them stay in the refrigerator for at least 30 minutes to chill, so that it gives it a more cheesecakey texture. Earlier than that, it's not as creamy when you bite into it, but it still tastes great. So if you're gonna make these, just budget the time to put them in your fridge and let them chill for a bit. Here we have it. And I have my spoon from before, other spoon from before. And I'm going to go ahead and just scoop out this batter and put it. I find it easiest to use 2 spoons when I'm doing this, because otherwise it can get pretty sticky and messy. Let's go back. Let's go ahead and let's scoop it out. Oops. Got a little bit of the flaxseed crust and that one on the top. It's okay. It'll still taste great. That one in. Go ahead with this. And when you fill these, you want them to be, they'll puff up and then they'll collapse back down. And they can be filled pretty much all the way up to the top, but you don't want it overflowing out of the top. So this is the one I'm going to put in the toaster oven, just in case the oven is still having some of this difficulty. You see it? That's where I have a little bit of the crust on the top, but it's okay. It'll be great. And put it in. And we'll fill this one up. And I'm going to go ahead and set my timer right now for 20 minutes on that one. Okay. That one's set. I'm going to fill up these. Let's see. Let's scrape this. Just scraping it down with a spatula to get that last bit out of there. And good. We'll go ahead and put these in the oven too. And this, I clean up after myself. Okay.
So now the waiting begins.
Yeah, 15 minutes before I'm going to pull them back out again.
So I guess my first question in watching your process is, you had a bowl full of deliciousness and you chose to wash it instead of having someone else come in and lick the bowl clean. I'm confused by that. Everything I've ever done with baking tells me, no, that's for, you lick and then you wash, you know?
I know. This is, I'm sure if I invited one of my children in right now, they would happily lick that bowl clean. Although, I don't know, the raw eggs, maybe I'd be like, okay, gotta be careful.
Yeah, like lick around those parts, just get the goods, and then it's fine. It's completely fine. That looks like such a simple process, though. And obviously, you know, unlike with a lot of TV shows or when they'll have like morning shows and they'll have someone come in and prepare something, and it's obviously there's an element of staging with it. You know, that was all done live. Is how much in the book is going to be similar in terms of that level of simplicity, I guess.
We were really working towards having things simple and easy. I would say that this book is this particular recipe is maybe mid-level. So a lot of the recipes in the book are going to be even easier than this. There are a few recipes, like I'm thinking of the one where I spatchcock a game hen and like have it all splayed out to cook. So like that technique is a little more involved. Like it involves using scissors and like cutting through the backbone. But most of the recipes are pretty simple, straightforward like this.
That's awesome. That's the best kind of cooking. Out of curiosity, how much would you say is more baking in style? How much is more cooking in style? Is it kind of an even split?
I would say it's more cooking overall, the cookbook. So there's definitely I'm thinking about this. So like we have a section that is like the desserts or we call it like the sweets and fat bombs. And so, you know, those recipes, maybe that's split 50-50 between baking and things that I would consider more cooking, like our the peanut butter and jelly ice cream might be a little more of a cooking technique, but then like the pine nut biscotti, this is a great recipe, and it's a recipe that calls for no artificial or other sweeteners. So it's like a really, I don't know, having recipes that are desserts but that you don't have to add any sweeteners to, it's pretty fantastic. But then a lot, you know, the bulk of the cookbook are recipes that you can do, either make ahead or be able to like streamline, have done in 30 minutes. Things like the chicken burrito bowls, this is one of my favorites here. This shrimp noodles with coconut broth.
Ooh, yeah.
So straightforward, easy. A couple techniques, things like shaving zucchinis to make zucchini noodles, or using broccoli or cauliflower, making like broccoli or cauliflower rice. So there are some like techniques to learn, but nothing that I think should be too intimidating.
Okay.
Like everyone can do this.
Very cool. So we do actually have a question from our live stream. This is from Susan Card. Susan wants to know, can I substitute ground fennel? I've never used it before.
Hi, Susan. Yes, you can absolutely. If you don't have, like, you can take fennel and grind it. If you don't have it, you can also substitute in a little extra cinnamon. That's fine. Or you can add a little cardamom. You can, like, more cardamom. Or you can, like this say, my mother really, really dislikes the taste of licorice. And so if you're someone who doesn't like the taste of licorice, you can just leave out the fennel altogether.
Okay. So again, this isn't the kind of recipe like with a lot of traditional baking, as you sort of alluded to, where it's got to be, done precise and perfect, and everything has to be on the right schedule, otherwise it explodes. Very interesting. So let me ask you then, with the rest of the cookbook, what, if any, special equipment are we going to need? For example, I've got a mixer, I've got knives. Am I good to go, or are there things that I'm missing still?
So, you can do everything with the mixer and knives. It is helpful to have a food processor. I think like cauliflower rice, you just can't get around the fact that especially when people are first moving to a keto diet, having some kind of substitution for carbs that they're used to. Cauliflower rice is like a super easy way to substitute something in, and it's a lot easier to make with a food processor. But you totally can do it with a knife and a cutting board. But that, I would say, a food processor, a blender, or an immersion blender or something like that would be helpful for making a lot of the recipes.
Very cool.
I'm trying to think if there's, having a peeler so that you can make zucchini noodles, but that, I figure most people have a peeler. Yeah.
All right. So then, in talking about the other recipes that are in the book, how did you guys, what's the process like for coming up with what goes into a cookbook? Is it you sit down and you pour over your recipes?
So I'm so lucky because I work with a team of recipe writers. And so they, like, if you go to our app, there's like a giant library of all of the recipes that have been written. And there's recipes that like people have written and uploaded from the community, but then there's also all of the recipes that are like the Carb Manager sponsored recipes. And so some of the recipes in this book, we decided on them because people, like our users, just love them so much. And so I couldn't see like having a cookbook without having some of these recipes in there with that, because they're such wonderful recipes. And then I worked with our food writers and our recipe writers, and like we went through, probably there's a little more than 100 recipes in this book. And so we probably had 300 some that we thought about using. We talked about it. I went through and cooked like every single recipe that we were thinking about, modified things to make it so that things were more streamlined for the book than it might be for that, that it had been for the app. I went through all of the comments that people had made about some of their favorite recipes in the app to see how people were tweaking them and changing them, and thought about that and making the recipes. This is one of the ones it's like a huge hit on the app. This is the Philly cheesecake skillet. It's delicious. So things like that, like we had to include those. And then I really wanted to make it so that someone could buy this cookbook and cook from it, and they didn't, if like apps aren't their thing, it would just stand alone on its own to help people know about keto and kind of be an entry point into cooking keto.
So this is really kind of done by committee almost in a lot of ways. The community really had a lot of input on the recipes and how they were presented in this book. Yeah.
This is, we have, for years there's been like message boards where people talk to each other. And so as people who, work for Carb Manager as well, like I worked as one of the support agents. And so I would see like all of the different conversations, and then people would also email me or email all of us and say, I'm having trouble with this, or I can't find a cookbook that has this, these aspects to it. And so that got me thinking, I think there's a need for like a real entry level, fresh flavors type cookbook for people to use. So that was really helpful, like seeing the struggles that people were having, and then trying, after working in that kind of position for some time, writing something to address some of those questions and issues that people had.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I cannot tell you in my own cooking experiences the number of times that I've read an instruction or I've seen something and I've gone, what does that even mean? There's no one to ask, and then I do a thing and I'll try it and I'm like, oh, I don't really like this. What do I not like about it? Being able to bounce that off of other people, I think, would be hugely helpful. And it's so cool that there's already this community in place, and they're going to get this book and immediately be able to recognize pieces from it. That's a really unique sort of thing. So, were there any things that, you know, in the editing process that you had initially in the book that you ended up having to pull out, that, you know, we can sort of see behind the scenes, so to speak? Any deleted recipes or scenes, I guess?
I mean, there was a certain morning. So all of these recipes, you know, my family, we got to eat all of them, and then recipes that didn't end up in the book, we definitely got to eat those as with some very eggy, like the kind of pancake crepe gone wrong, and there were some tears.
Oh.
And some, you know, adjustments and changes, and you know, sometimes things don't always work out, so that's okay. Just back to the drawing board.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh.
No, I mean, it that makes sense to me. Like, it's such a cool process, I would think, getting to put together a cookbook, and it's so very different from a lot of other writing, I would imagine, where, you know, normally you sit down and you've got a storyboard, or you've got an idea for an outline, or you've got characters you want to introduce, and in this you're like, what food am I going to bring? What dishes are coming into play? And obviously, you know, you're still working on it with, you know, the keto diet being sort of the outline and parameter. But that's still a really cool way to set it up. I'm curious, you know, with your pretty wide range of experiences, what was one of the things that you noticed that you sort of brought with you? Because, like I said, you know, you've been a restaurant reviewer, you've been a baker, you cooked on a boat in Alaska, which I like the specificity there. What are some things that sort of came from that and made an appearance here in this book?
Well, that's such a great question. I'm trying to think if there's like a particular recipe that kind of speaks to that. I mean, I think that definitely some of these kind of like bold flavors, like having flavors that you eat something and you're like, oh, that tastes so good. Like, that's a real restaurant style, like, way of cooking. And so I'm thinking, and I feel like that's also sometimes something that can work really well with keto foods, because there are like certain, you know, foods that are kind of cut out from your diet, but you have this like amazing set of foods that are still there. And I'm thinking about like one of the first restaurants that I worked at when I was still in cooking school was a Nuevo Latino restaurant that was super fun to work at. And I was thinking about like the chorizo and shrimp fajitas and kind of the like flavor profile there, where it was just, we're doing them on lettuce wraps here. So you like have this filling and you pick up the lettuce wrap and it's just like all this flavor. And that, I feel like that kind of came from that, like using a lot of spices, and like this one uses smoked paprika. So it gives it this like smoky, sweet flavor in the background, coriander, dried oregano. And so you like go to bite it and it's just like, bam, there's all this flavor there.
Very cool. So yeah, I mean, it makes sense that there would be things that, like, you know, have come with you full circle, so to speak.
Yeah.
We've got a comment here from Susan. It really is a good cookbook. I just used it for the first time tonight and made the citrus salmon and the garlic herb bread. Both are yummy and easy to make. The whole family ate it. So how do you do a garlic herb bread that's keto friendly?
Oh, that's a great question. And thank you so much, Susan. Like, it's great to hear that feedback. And, I'm glad to see, because I feel like the citrus salmon recipe as well, like the time that I spent cooking in a boat in Alaska, there's a lot of salmon that we were making. So I'm going to go ahead and turn to the garlic herb bread. It's really, almond flour is totally the friend here, because it has such a great flavor. So here's the garlic herb bread. Here we are. Here. And it's really like almond flour, and then also the cream cheese and the eggs, like using all those things together. The garlic herb bread, and then also there's some buttermilk biscuits here it's a little different, but it has, both of them use the backbone of the almond flour. And we're using almond flour in the crust as well. There are other, like, some people don't eat almonds, and so there's other options if you don't eat almonds. But if you do eat almonds, I feel like almond flour has this kind of neutral background flavor, and it's also really adaptable. So you can make it sweet, you can make it savory, and it gives you a great texture, holds a lot of moisture. Garlic. Glad to hear you like that garlic herb bread.
Yeah. As someone who is 90% garlic bread at this point, I'm always interested in getting to try other breads. So you mentioned other kinds of flours outside of almond flour. First, and this is a very, I'm sure, simple or dumb question from someone who just doesn't bake. I love almonds. I think they taste great. Is there any like almondy flavor that is there because it's almond flour, or is it really neutral?
If you just like pick up a little bit of almond flour and eat it, maybe it would have an almondy flavor, but I found that it's pretty neutral, to be honest. Like, if I'm making something with almond flour and I want to have like a big almond punch, I'll usually use almond extract to like give that flavor.
Okay.
It's not something that necessarily that comes through as much as one might think it would.
Okay. So with all of the cooking that you guys are doing at home, whether it's for work or whether it's for just eating and being able to feed yourselves, when you were doing when you were writing this book, did you find that not that you got burned out on cooking, but there were just nights you're like, oh my god, okay, we're gonna go out, I can't, does cooking ever feel like work, I guess is the question.
I love cooking, so that's at times like I do. There's with this situation right now, like I feel like it's been really important to support the restaurants locally, and so I have been getting takeout. Like, there's a Thai restaurant that we love on Island, and there's also a guy named Chris, and he has a restaurant, Earthen, that we really love. And so trying to support those local things. I'm happy to eat other people's food that they cook as well. But it's, my idea of a relaxing time is just to get some long project, like something that I'm learning about food-wise, and then spend a lot of time like exploring and cooking that. So
awesome.
I love it.
Yeah. So with the cheesecake bites tonight, obviously everyone in your house is going to get to benefit from this event. I would assume. So how?
Oh, I better check on those. Do you want to finish your question and I'll think about it?
I will remember my question. Go check.
Okay. Ooh. Oh my goodness, these look so beautiful. Oh, I can smell this like nutty, sort of gingerbready smell. And you'll see, so if you're trying to figure out if they're done or not, you just want to make it so that they're not, like if you touch the top, it doesn't feel like tacky, and it doesn't feel like your finger could go like right into it. You may find that some of them have like very slightly, let's see if you can see that one, like split open on the top, which is totally fine. These ones have like a touch of browning here around the edge. This one's slightly split. And if you shake it, you shouldn't see it like jiggling around. So I'm going to go ahead and put these to the side, check the ones that are in our temperamental oven, and I'll let them cool for, until I can touch this, and then I'll take them out, I'll put them in a container and put them in the fridge.
Sounds good.
So there you have it. Let's check on this. Okay. Okay. They look pretty good in that oven. It's only heating up to 330 instead of 350, but it's working out okay. So this, this goes into the whole baking thing of like, how precise do you have to be? And in this case, like, they're still going to be great. So
yeah,
we have the toaster oven ones, and then we have these, and I'll just let them cook, an extra 10 minutes or so.
So my question was, it looks like you're going to have roughly 12 cheesecake bites. How long do they keep for? I mean, I would assume we're not eating all 12 tonight, although...
So they should keep in the fridge for, 5 days. I doubt that they'll stay in the fridge for 5 days, but you could make them ahead of time, and then, like, if you make them at the beginning of the week, then they'll last through till the end of the week.
Excellent. Very cool. So the book itself, how is it organized? Do we have like starters, breakfast, lunch, dinner, dessert? Is it by what standard? By what metrics, I guess?
So it is. This is such an interesting question, because I had a long talk with our editor about how to organize it, and we did just, because she was like, maybe we should start with like organize it by proteins or organize it by these different things. But we decided that because a lot of people need to plan ahead to make it so that they can stay eating keto, we decided to go ahead and put it so that we have morning food first, and then we have quick and easy things for like splendid suppers, like if you're cooking for a larger group or having like people over or some sort of celebration type meal, batch cooking and make aheads. And then we have like soups, sides, snacks, and then at the end, sweets and fat bombs. So throughout it, I mean, a lot of people who do keto might also be doing like intermittent fasting, and so they might decide like not, just not having breakfast or something like that. So you can always skip around from spot to spot. And then there's also a lot of foods in other sections, and we have like a whole list of these that make great breakfast foods, even though they're not in the like morning food chapter.
Oh, very cool. Could you share one of the technically not breakfast, but also could totally work as a breakfast food?
Well, these definitely these little cheesecakes that I just made were great, as I've eaten them as breakfast many times. But I also think the like kimchi fried cauli rice, that works great. Like you just fry an egg and put that on top as well. Or you can have some of the, I give some instructions for if you wanted to make a fried egg sandwich, you could use like the buttermilk biscuits, or you could use the garlic herb bread and then put like an egg on top of that. You can have some of the things in the like sweets chapter, like the panna cotta, maybe put like a few raspberries on it, and that could make a great breakfast food as well.
Perfect. Yeah, I mean, anything with raspberries has my vote.
Yeah.
It's kind of my jam. All right, so
you would like this. There's a breakfast salad that has raspberries on it, so you should totally try it.
What goes into a breakfast salad?
What goes into a breakfast salad? Let's see. This one has and this, really, all of us, like, one of the things I've been trying to do sometimes is just take like a handful of greens and eat it with whatever else I'm eating for breakfast. But this particular breakfast salad it's raspberry, radish, and goat cheese. And then it has some different pumpkin seeds, some sunflower seeds, some avocado. It's great.
I was going to say, it sounds great. So we've got one set of the cheesecake bites that are cooling, one set of the cheesecake bites that are in the oven. How long do they usually take to cool? You said it's still, you can touch it, right?
Yeah, because I want to, like, at this point, I want them to kind of set up. But it's sometimes when things are cooling, it can, like, if you leave it, like, if I just took this and, like, put it directly in here in the fridge, it can cause condensation, and so it'll take like, I don't know, maybe somewhere between 5 and 10 minutes until it's cool enough that I can touch and take them out, and then I can put them on a little oven rack until they're cool. And then I've been using these little like food containers where you put it in and then you can like put a lid on it, and that way any of the make aheads you can like put them in a container like this and then just have that all ready to go in your fridge.
Perfect. Okay. Very cool. All right. I have another couple quick questions for you while we wait for them to be ready then, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So when you've got this book out, and it's the keto diet book. Are there plans for there to be other other books based on other diets, or is the plan for there to be just a general carb manager cookbook, or what other stuff is in the pipeline?
We'll see. So this is, if people are interested in other things, please email us. Let us know. Like, we're open to suggestions. Keto has been sort of like the backbone of Carb Manager, but there's tons of people who also don't follow keto but follow like low carb diets, and so the recipes like on our app, there's a lot of recipes that aren't necessarily keto but they are low carb, and so people, if you have a particular diet type, you can also enter this in, and then the app itself can like make different meal plans for you based on what kind of foods you need and what your dietary profile looks like. But they definitely are like low carb keto. Mm-hmm. That's the backbone of our recipes, though you can also, create your own recipes, and you don't have to be keto or low carb to use it. For sure.
Okay. And actually, you teed me up with my next question pretty well when you mentioned dietary profiles. You mentioned earlier that different people require, I don't want to say require different diets, but require kind of different diets, and it's based on build and body type. How do you determine, or how does someone determine what's going to be the most beneficial way for them to eat?
I would say like 100% talk to your doctor, talk to those professionals in your life, because it's something like we as like Carb Manager that's not our world. Like, we don't recommend to people, oh, you are X, Y, and Z, and so you should do this per se. But once people have a good sense of what they want, the things that you can enter in things like how tall you are, how much activity you do, and then what kind of diet that you would like to follow, and then use it as a tool. So like if someone wants to say have 20% of their calories coming from carbohydrates and like 60% from fat and 20% from protein, they could do that. Like you can choose like different things based on what your personal needs are, but it's not something that we wouldn't ever say to someone, oh, you should do this.
Sure.
It's just a tool for people to use.
Yes, for Mandy's lawyers listening at home, she's not advising anyone to make any sort of dietary decisions at all. She said the magic words, check with your doctor. So let me ask then a little bit of a question about sort of your personal journey here. English degree from Harvard, teaching English, Seattle Culinary Academy, cooking on a boat, cooking, as a line cook or a restaurant reviewer. I mean, I can in theory sort of put together the chronology of how I would imagine that all came to be, but how did that all come to be?
Well, this is something, just a sec, I gotta check it real quick. Yeah, hey, these look great. So I'm seeing, yeah. So they're puffy. They have little crap on there, but they look good. I'm gonna go ahead and put these to the side.
Perfect.
So yeah, the chronology. I mean, I've always loved food. So I was saying beforehand that
Mandy, we lost your video. Oh, there you go.
You have me here?
Yes, I do.
Okay. So I've always loved food. I started cooking and working in restaurants when I was still in high school, and then I was talking about this before we started here, where I didn't like doing the dishes, and so I traded jobs within my family and said that I would be willing to like cook all the meals and do all the grocery shopping if I didn't have to wash dishes anymore. So we traded that. I've still washed a lot of dishes, like in restaurants, various places. And then I grew up in Alaska, and I kind of like wanted to see something else, see something different. And then I've always written and have written all different types of things. And writing a cookbook is something, it's always just been a huge dream of mine. So I feel really, really lucky to have the opportunity to do this. But trying to find a way to like merge writing, food, like all of these things together. I feel like I've been able to do it. I feel it's wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely. You've been able to sort of marry your two passions into one thing. That's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this one then. When it comes to the book itself, what was it like sort of pitching the idea to the publisher? How did that process work? Again, I've seen it done. I've talked to people about it now a couple of times when it comes to novels, when it comes to to nonfiction, but I haven't seen it before with a cookbook. So I'm curious what that process was like.
So it was interesting for us because that process, they came to us and asked us if we were interested.
Oh wow!
And so we talked about it, and it's something because there's a lot of work outside of the cookbook. 'Cause our business like is doing the tech things, but I've been working like doing customer support, and we were really lucky to be able to hire additional agents and people that could take over some of that role that I was doing. And then I had the time to really focus on this and kind of head up that project, because as I was saying before, like it's something I've just like always really dreamed of doing. And so then we discussed, having this be the way that we set it up with them, and they were like really open to that. So it's kind of like a win on both sides, and definitely something that like I was interested in doing. So that's this time has been a pretty rough time for a lot of people, and I feel like having something to like work on during this time has been like such a blessing. So
yeah. So how long did it take from them approaching you to the book coming out? How long was that process?
About a year and a half.
Oh wow.
So
that is
yeah.
Look, that's impressive. I would have thought with recipes, I just don't know, like, oh, you've got them and you put them in the book and you're done. It's just, but it makes sense that there'd obviously be a bunch of processes that go along with that. And I mean, the best process obviously is testing them and tasting them, but very, very cool. All right, so let's see. When it comes to, trying and cooking the different things from your cookbook, you mentioned that there's one that in particular is a little bit difficult because it's you have to do something specific with the chicken. Are there any that you would go, if someone comes into the store and they go, hey, I'm really nervous about cooking, what are 3 things you would suggest from the cookbook that are really easy, anyone can do, it's like burning milk, you can't mess it up?
That's a great, here, I'm just going to turn off my oven here. So that's a great question. Like, that'll take me a sec to think about. It's interesting because a lot of my, some of my personal friends, when they've jumped into this cookbook, they've jumped into one of the first things they've made is the Vietnamese lemongrass noodle bowl. Mm-hmm. So it has the pictures of that there. And so I've been getting pictures, like one of my friends went to make it and she was like, but I don't have any pork. And so she used chicken instead. And she was like, it's fantastic. I love it. So it's pretty forgiving and easy in that way. I also, if if you're someone who needs fat bombs, it's hard to mess up, and it's so beautiful and delicious. The hazelnut truffle fat bombs.
Okay.
And they look like something that you've spent just hours making, but they come together like really quickly and are beautiful. And then I also think what else would be like a really good starter, like if you're just going to jump into the cookbook the first time. Can I say two more?
Absolutely, you can.
Okay. I mean, the raspberry cheese, this is also on the raspberry theme for you. So if I was recommending for you, I would recommend that maybe you start with these raspberry cheesecake breakfast pots.
Okay.
I know you love raspberries so much. And then one recipe that I feel like is, like every time I make it, I'm just like, I love this recipe so much. It's so delicious, is the creamy shrimp and wild rice risotto. So this is here, and it's one of those things. It's like creamy, it's delicious, and it's very, very easy, straightforward, and pretty much any, just go straight to that quick and easy chapter and look through those, because those are all like great entry points.
Very cool. So I've got two final questions for you. My first one is going to be with regards to the pictures. So I have to ask, because I'm curious, how did you guys do the pictures for all the recipes? Did you make it 80 times until it looked perfect and you went, all right, this is it? You get the camera and you take it real quick and you devour it? How does that work?
We found Becky Winkler, and she photographed for us, and she's just amazing. She, like, I wasn't there. She emailed me when she had questions about things, and then emailed us the photographs. And we couldn't have asked for like a better person to work with. Like, it's just beautiful. And then on top of that, one thing that isn't evident in the book, but is something that we didn't have space for in the book, but if you go and if you pull up the recipes on the app, our recipe writers did step-by-step photographs. So there's also, each step has a photograph attached to it. Okay. And that's something that like our recipe writers did.
Very cool. And so for my final question, can you explain for us a little bit about the Carb Manager app itself? We've talked around it, I feel, a little bit, but for anyone who may be joining us a little late, or for anyone who's listening to this and saying, that all sounds really cool, what can you tell us about that?
Sure. So it's an app, which means it's something that you can download onto your mobile device, or you can use it like on your computer via the website, and it's available in the Apple Store, or it's available like on your Android device as well in the App Store. And with ours, this is something you can use it to track the food that you eat. You can use it to track your exercises. You can use it to track like how much water you drink, your sleep, like all of these different other things. But really, the backbone of it is tons of recipes, a great community of people, and something for anyone who's doing low carb or keto or just wants to use it to track their food.
Perfect. So I have one last question before we go tonight. Is there any chance that we can see one of the finished cheesecake bites if it's ready, if it's cool?
Sure. Let's take a look. So it's still a little hot, but I'm gonna show it to you, and it's gonna set up as it cools, but you can see it right now. There we go.
That looks really good.
Yeah, we have this nice little layer here of the crust, and then the top part, you can see all the different like spices and things. I'll even take a little bite of it.
Yeah, see, the folks at home don't realize Mandy is actually mailing those to me later. That's the arrangement we've worked out. Just going to send them to the store. We're going to do a whole thing with it.
You can do this. You can make these on your own. I know that you said that baking was intimidating, but believe me, you can do it just step by step.
All right, you know what? That's something I'm actually willing to try and do, because you do make it seem really easy, and not like in the Food Channel way where they're just like, yeah, all you have to do is just grab your your in bowl mixer, and I'm just like, I don't have one of those. Who has one of those? Immersion blender. That's the word I was looking for. Well, Mandy, thank you so much for joining me tonight. This was a lot of fun. I'm very hungry now, and I don't have delicious keto cheesecake bites to enjoy, so I'm gonna figure something out, I guess. But thank you so much for joining us. This was a lot of fun for me.
Thank you so much for hosting me here, and it's just such a pleasure. Thank you all, everyone who tuned in to listen and watch.
Yeah.
So happy cooking, everyone, and hope you all have a lovely evening.
Absolutely. And then a quick shameless plug for the store. I know it's the worst part of the show. Everyone tells me,
good.
But if you watched this and went, that looks delicious, I'd like to make them myself, because you don't have the hookup with Mandy like I do. Or if you want to try any of the other recipes, or if you've downloaded the Carb Manager app and you're like, having the cookbook sounds great too, you can absolutely get that cookbook from us at Town Book Center. We're located in Collegeville, Pennsylvania. We are actually one of the largest independent bookstores in the state of Pennsylvania. But if you don't live here, that's okay. We don't hold that against you. You can always order from us online at townbc.com. That's TOWN as in Nike, E as in Echo, B as in Bravo, C as in Charlie.com. Thank you all so much, and have a wonderful rest of your evening. All right, bye everyone.
Good night.